In Appalachia, it's really common to have an old-fashioned hymn sing at a family reunion or a church homecoming. So that's what we're going to do this morning, an old-fashioned hymn sing. And I need your help this morning. And so we're going to begin with this hymn. If you know it, I invite you to join in. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Now this hymn was first composed in 1968, which makes it, I guess, an ancient hymn nowadays. Suffice it to say, not everyone's grasped its deeper spiritual meaning. Many people have assigned it mere prurient interest. If you're that kind of person, all I can say is, get your mind out of the gutter. Raise your thoughts to higher ground. The mystics tell us that any song can be heard in more than one way, and sometimes you have to look beyond the obvious stated meaning for the deeper spiritual meaning that lies underneath it. So today, in the tradition of that old-time hymn sing, we're going to sing some songs together. Their lyrics are in your order of service. You can find them. They forgot to separate it, so you have to use a little creativity to know when one song ends and another begins. So the text for this sermon is, hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Anybody who has been in any church for any length of time has probably heard a minister speak about the three Greek words for love. Eros, which is romantic love, and philia, which is the love that is shared by friends, and there is agape, universal, unconditional love for all people. And so agape is that kind of love you feel for someone even if you don't know their name or their story or who they are. Now, both Jesus and Buddha were on the same page in this department. Agape is the broadest possible kind of love. Love one another, love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies, the broadest possible love you can imagine. And Buddha spoke of universal compassion. Compassion for all people and for all sentient beings. Now, Martin Luther King, when he spoke about this love, when he was working for the civil rights movement and opposing the Vietnam War and working on edgy issues in our culture, he would often say that love is not a weak emotion. It is a strong emotion. And when he spoke of love, he was speaking of that force which is described by all the great world religions as the unifying force of all things. He said love is the door that love is the key that unlocks the doors to ultimate reality. This Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, Christian, Taoist concept is beautifully summarized in 1 John. Love one another, for God is love. Now, when we practice this kind of love, we can love people we've never met. We can love people on the other side of the world, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Vietnam, and all the different parts of the world, in Africa. We can love complete strangers. And we can even be compelled to sing, and now you can join because you know what I'm going to sing. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Now, this words of the song can serve as kind of a mantra for us because we live in a violent time. We live in a time of drone strikes and bombings and terrorist attacks and mass shootings. It's an age where people are capable of hurting and hating people they don't know. People whose names they don't know. That's something that's an active power and force in our world today. And so a corresponding force is that larger love that we can bring into the world. This morning we have had a special collection to raise money for an ambulance that will go to Northwest Africa, and the people whose lives that will be saved by that ambulance, we may never, ever know their names. We may never know their names, but that's the kind of universal compassion the Buddha was speaking about. That is agape, as Jesus described it. That is love in action. In India, they have a proverb that says, if you're going to hike, then climb the Himalayas. And if you're going to swim, then jump in the ocean. And if you're going to love God, or love the infinite. Love something, love big time. Love large. Love the infinite. The world is getting smaller. Economists often speak about the globalization of the economy, but spiritual teachers of all the great faiths are beginning to speak about the globalization of compassion, the globalization of love, the globalization of the desire to serve, the globalization of kindness in the world. This is the meaning of universalism, universal love, universal compassion. When we love, we need to love large. We need to love big time. This kind of love does not always come easy. It doesn't come easy to us, and it doesn't come to anyone, I think. It requires us to choose faith over fear. And that can be a difficult choice, to choose faith over fear. It's a faith question. Because fear can come to us quite naturally. I think we live in an age of anxiety where fear is pretty strong emotion. This time of year, a lot of new people visit our church for the first time. And I know when I came to the church for the first time, I was scared. It was scary to walk through the doors of this church. Walking through the doors of this church can be an overwhelming experience. Recently, I was talking to a leader of this church who was talking with a friend, and the friend said, I love your church. I love everything it stands for. I love all the good you do in the community. But there are some strange people who go to your church. Well, it's hard to argue with. Amen, I hear. Can I get an amen? But in some ways, that's the way every church seems like when you walk through the doors for the first time. People are strange when you're a stranger. So that's our second hymn we're going to sing along. So look at, it doesn't tell you where to start, but when people are strange is the beginning. So, people are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down, when you're strange. Faces come out of the rain when you're strange. No one remembers your name when you're strange. When you're strange. When you're strange. So if this is your first Sunday and you're looking around and thinking, people look strange, well, you are not alone. People look strange when you're a stranger. Our perceptions of things are different. When we're new to a place, we see things differently, but our perceptions can change over time. Now, this hymn, People Are Strange, was also written by the rock band, The Doors. I brought them in. I sort of been on this tangent of learning more about them. Jim Morrison said their music was kind of a secular kind of religion. It was there's something about the rhythm of it. It was trying to put people in touch with their deeper selves. And the name The Doors comes from a poem that many of us know by William Blake called about the doors of perception. William Blake wrote, "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to us as it is, infinite." If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to us as it is, infinite. Now this year we held a memorial service for Sheila Bowen, who was a professor of nursing at the University of Tennessee, and her students gave her a very interesting superlative. Her students voted her the professor whose theories on nursing are most likely influenced by an acid trip. And the reason I mention this is because that quote, doors of perception, has become associated with acid trips and LSD because of a book that was written by Aldous Huxley. But one of the things I said about Sheila at her memorial service, and I'll say today, is you don't need drugs to see the infinite in all things. You don't need artificial stimulation to see the big picture, the infinite in everybody and everything that you encounter. Because that's what spirituality is about. That's what the church is about. Seeing the infinite in each other and in all things. It's about cleansing the doors of perception, because the church is the only organization, or one of the few organizations, that's dedicated to taking a room full of strangers and trying to create a community of friends. That is a meaningful mission statement, a difficult one, to take a room full of strangers and turn us all into a community of friends where we can look into each other's eyes with the doors of perception cleansed and see the infinite in one another. Now, there are many different names for the infinite. I remember another old song by George Harrison called My Sweet Lord, and when it started appearing on the radio, many people thought it was maybe contemporary Christian rock, and then the background singers started singing, Hare Krishna, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Hare Rama. It was very unsettling to some people in the church I grew up in. It was a very unsettling song. But now these names that people use, these many different names that people bring to the infinite, are meant to describe an experience which the Jewish theologian Martin Buber wrote about when he said, when two people relate to each other authentically and humanly, God is the electricity that passes between them, flows through us, the electricity that flows through us. Or as Albert Schweitzer said in words I often use when I light the chalice, at times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each one of us has reason to think with deep gratitude on those who have rekindled the flame within us. Now, in India, there's a name for this electricity. There's a name for this power. There's a name for this vitality, and it's a woman's name. The name is Shakti. It's a word to describe the divine feminine. So Shakti is personified divine as woman. Now, Krishna and Brahma and Vishnu and Rama, those are masculine names. So when we sing a hymn, I think it's important to expand and broaden it. So I'm going to start with George Harrison, but I'm going to move into one of our door songs, and I'll invite you to join in and sing along. Close it. Okay? I got to talk a little bit first.
Sorry.
I want you to help me out. I mean, anybody else can help me out on the closer, I'll invite you forward. So that'll be great. So Shakti is in the room now. Shakti is in the room. Shakti is the name for that energy, that spark, that electricity that lights our fire. This hymn is also by the Doors. When Jim Morrison was asked to explain the meaning of the name of his band, he said, perhaps a little pretentiously, there's the known and there's the unknown, and in between there are the doors. But anybody who's walked through those doors knows what it's like to pass through those doors from the known into the unknown. It can be very, very scary. I know somebody who walked right up to the doors of the church and heard organ music and ran away. It was scary to them. Maybe somebody heard the doors and he ran away. But they came back because it's scary walking to this place. It's scary to be exposed to something new. However, if we cleanse the doors of perception, and that's our goal today, to cleanse the doors of perception, we will be able to see in each other the infinite. We may just discover that love is the key that unlocks the doors to ultimate reality, so much so that even the most introverted among us may be able to go up to someone in the coffee hour and say, and you know what I'm going to say, and anybody wants to help me? Does anybody want to be my backup? Will y'all be my backup band? Come on. You ready? Wants to be. You ready? Mm-hmm. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name?